Welcome back, guys. We're here for another session of podcasting. I guess for those guys who haven't met me yet, I'm Joey. I'm paid media director here at The Social Shepherd. And today joining me, I've got Jakub, who's senior paid media manager. Jakub,
Hello.
if you want to introduce yourself.
Oh, 100%, yeah. So I'm Jakub, as already been introduced. Originally from Poland, hence my interesting accent here. I've been in the industry for 6 years now, part of the Social Shepherd team for roughly 6 months and enjoying it so much. We will be talking about PPC common mistakes today. Joey, if you want to take us off here.
Yeah, for sure. So I think, one of the things that when we're working with PPC accounts, especially when we're pitching for new businesses, we do audit accounts. And I think typically with that side of things, when we're doing the auditing, we do spot quite a few mistakes. And there's quite a few common ones that crop up when we do look at them. So I guess that's going to be our topic of conversation today. I think I'll start, I guess, by kicking things off. I think typically, and I know we've discussed this many times kind of on the podcast before, but, certainly times have changed, across the world of paid media. And I think particularly looking at Google Ads in itself, the first thing that we kind of normally see is actually people still managing Google Ads accounts as if it was 5-6 years ago. And times have massively changed since then. Back then, things were run very manual CPC. You'd be in the ad account, you would be upweighting bids, on your keywords and any of your bid adjusters that you've got. But because, we've got the power of the automated bidding strategies now, they're so much more powerful, and in terms of what they can drive.
There is a level of appreciation here because obviously the old habits, they don't die that easily. So the old days where we used to do things granular, we still see the accounts that have been run this way. And I think it stems from a level of control that the client want to have, that the paid media specialists across the board, they do want to have control over biddings and modification across the board. But we have seen lately, the last couple of years, with an introduction of automated bidding and automated black box campaigns such as Performance Max, that there has to be an element of control given out to Google simply because it works better.
Yeah, for sure. I think, I guess just to put it into context, I think, when you're using manual bidding, say, for example, you set your bid at 50p, I guess the way that the automated bidding works is if you're using manual CPC, your bid will always be 50p, essentially, no matter who you are in terms of, a consumer in their user journey, what your browser behavior is, and kind of the way that you're acting, I guess, across, your Google account. The way that automatic automated bidding will then come into play is it adds a level of dynamism in terms of the way that Google bids. So if you've been, say you're shopping for some shoes, for example, you're in market for shoes, you're looking at lots of different websites for that kind of thing. If you're then running, a keyword bidding for the term shoes, very generic, I know, not a great example. But for the sake of this, if you're in market for shoes, actually, you want to be bidding up for that person because
100%.
they're actually actively looking for shoes. Whereas if you don't have that automated bidding in place, you can't look at all of the different signals that Google's got available to it to be able to kind of dynamically change that bid. And you kind of leave yourself in a static world where actually your competition are all using, automated bidding strategies.
Yeah.
And are therefore being so much more competitive and so much more effective in the way that they're spending their money. So I think that's certainly one of the avenues that we always go down when we're auditing Google Ads accounts. And one thing that we're always trying to push for is just making sure that we're using those automated bidding strategies as much as we can because they're so much more powerful.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not to say that we want to give the control over to Google entirely. There's still elements of the PPC account that we can modify ourselves when it comes to bidding. Obviously, that is still an element of modification that we rarely see, where clients actually actively search for audiences or locations or other in-account indicators of performance where they can modify the bids across the board.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I guess it leads kind of nicely on to our second kind of mistake that we see, which kind of, I guess, lends itself again back to the way that accounts were managed, maybe 5-6 years ago, using those manual bidding strategies. And that is actually having a way too granular campaign structure.
Yeah.
I think certainly one of the things that we've seen develop over the last 5 years with the introduction of those automated bidding strategies is the need to condense down ad accounts, because all of the algorithmic learning is done at campaign level. If you have that too granularly split out, then the amount of data going through those campaigns is just not enough, and you can't drive the performance forward. So I think certainly that's one avenue that we always check in to make sure that things aren't too granularly split out.
Yeah, I think the other element of that would be that paid media specialists sometimes would decide on a strategy of structuring the account or structuring the ad groups, and then not necessarily follow the other avenue, because it is challenging. 100%. I appreciate that, to manage all the search terms and create ad groups out of the search terms. But it's good to stick to the structure. We usually, or we quite often see that someone has decided on a SCAG structure in the past, but then not necessarily follow the structure going forward, which skews the learnings and confuses the algorithms going forward as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that leads, talking about account structure on that side of things as well, kind of lends itself into the way that, again, people are structuring keywords within their ad account. Again, it's another mistake that we see where, within your ad group, there is just a plethora of different keywords within that ad group, and it looks very messy. You've got a mix of broad match, exact match and phrase match in there, all of different terms. And it's just having a really bad negative impact on your quality score, which is obviously driving up your CPCs.
100%. So when you need someone to manage your search terms and ad groups, you need us basically here.
Essentially, yeah.
One other bit, which may be a little bit out of the structure itself. I think we see that there is an element of conversion tracking that sometimes is confusing the algorithms as well, where clients, they do know how to import or create conversions within their account, but not necessarily are aware of how to split out conversions into primary or secondary conversions in the same tab that they do it when it was setting it up.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a relatively recent change that Google have made to kind of add this primary secondary conversion tagging, I guess, within the platform itself. So again, one thing that we do see is the fact that people haven't categorized their conversions that they've pulled into Google Ads correctly, which, like you said, skews and throws the algorithm out of learning. Because if you've got lots of different conversions all on primary, they're not actually good KPIs for us to be working towards. Then the Google algorithm is going to be out optimizing towards those goals, which actually aren't really relevant for what we want to be doing. So just making sure that correct, as you said, making sure that we've got the right conversion goals set up as primary objectives.
That doesn't mean you only have to optimize towards one conversion, because you can have campaigns that optimize towards a primary conversion and another campaign that optimizes towards a different primary conversion, just as long as you know what primary conversion is relevant for each campaign in your account. And while we are on the topic of conversions, there is a little tick box while setting up your conversions that is very, very often skipped past when setting up those conversions, which is called the enhanced conversion option within the account. This is another element of Google fighting the challenges with cookies and iOS changes. And I feel like with Google introducing the automated automated opt-in option to help increase conversion tracking with enhanced conversion, it is very often the case where we should be opting into enhanced conversion and set it up automatically via Google Tag Manager, because it helps with trackability of the account.
Yeah, for sure. And I think with the changes that are happening with cookies over the next couple of years or so, that's going to become kind of more important to make sure you have those processes in place. I think, again, leading off the back of that, actually making sure that you've got the correct data-driven attribution modeling applied to your conversion goals. it was, I think it was towards the end of last year that Google kind of blanket, applied that to all of the Google Ads accounts. Previous to that, it wasn't accessible for everyone. You had to have a certain amount of conversion data and volume coming through your ad account to be able to use data-driven attribution. But now everyone has access to it. So if you're on your Google Ads account and you don't have data-driven attribution on, turn it on.
Right now, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think there's also like a common thread across the areas that we have identified here, which is a sort of an element of understanding how to target the audience and with relevance across the board. And I feel like this also can be increased on the accounts that we usually audit. There's more ways now to play with these campaigns than there were before, even though some of those campaigns will be automated biddings or automated in a sense where there's not enough insight, such as PMax itself. But still, if you have a good audience on a page, a good number of pages, there is a good variety of products. If you're an e-commerce business, you can still play around with your offering. You can still play around, with the website visitors audiences in terms of relevant categories, but also in your PMax campaigns, your all products asset group doesn't have to be the only asset group that you need to run. Yeah, you can run actually. So.
Yeah, for sure. I think it, like you mentioned, it's become kind of more important now with audience testing. Now Performance Max has kind of come into the fray, and you've got, that availability to kind of test all of those different audiences. So I think, I guess, again, another key learning to take from, all of the ad accounts that we look at since Performance Max has come into it is just making sure you're testing enough and testing different audiences. Because I think it's very easy for people to get bogged down and think, oh yeah, I'm just going to overlay this audience on my Performance Max campaign and just leave it. And you're not gaining any incrementality if you're not kind of doing any testing
100%,
within the account.
I think as a business, you need to ask yourself how much of the PMax, like how much of the paid media activity really is for you to explore new audiences and prospect out there. But because PMax can do it for you effectively, but it can also target and use these audience signals to remarket users. So if there's an element of prospecting that you want to introduce to your company, that is far greater that is of far greater importance, for you, then remarketing element of it, because you use other paid media platforms to remarket, then maybe even think about testing none of the audience signals overlaid on an asset group going forward. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for that, Jakub. Great, interesting conversation as per usual. And thanks everyone for listening. If you're listening on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe. And for any of the other social channels, make sure you give us a follow.